Hi, it's Phil here at Digital DJ Tips, and today I have the Vestax VCI-100 Mark II 4-deck 2-channel DJ controller to have a look at. The controller first came out about a year ago. I think I saw it at the BPM show in October 2010 for the first time, but it's recently taken a price drop to $599 in US dollars, €499 euros, £399 pounds, and with the controller market kind of swinging a bit back towards 2-channel controllers that are smaller and lighter, they kind of pack a few more features in but don't have these big 4-channel mixes in the middle, which is great. You know, there was a period there where it looked like that's the way everything was going, and people realised, you know what, I want something light, I want something that can fit in my backpack, I want something that I don't need to put in the car boot to get to my gig. So, you know, there's a balance and there's room for all these kinds of controllers, but I think this one particularly got overlooked a little bit on its release in the kind of barrage of 4-channel controllers that were coming around at that time, and it also arrived at the same time as the Control S4, which took all the limelight back in autumn 2010. So time to have another look, especially with the price drop, and also especially with the fact that Vestax has promised a Tractor Pro 2 mapping for this. Now this has got quite a lot of buttons on it, and there's a lot of spare buttons on it, so there's no reason why it can't get a really good sample deck mapping and get up to speed in that area as well. So, time to take another look at it. Now it looks at first appearance just like the VCI-100, which it replaced. However, it's considerably lighter. It has a metal top plate which is bolted down, so it's got that quality feel to it. But the bottom is kind of like metallized plastic, I think is the non-technical term for it. And overall its styling is just more modern. It's kind of edges around here. It's got rubber at the front and back in these two areas, which protects the controls that appear here and around the back. It kind of just holds most of the controls below the flush line so that there's a little bit of protection there for them. Plus it looks nice. It has the typical Vestax styling, which I would say is kind of workman-like and tech musician-like, not toy feeling at all. This metal top plate thing is what the Novation Twitch also has, although the Twitch looks very different. It has a metal top plate on a plastic controller, and it just gives that feeling of class. The way that the Tractor controllers do it is by having 2-tone plastic, so it has a kind of a gloss plastic and a kind of more metally looking plasticky feel. But they all manage to look quite professional while remaining light, all three of those controllers, the S2 and the S4, the Novation Twitch and this one, as opposed to something like the Reloop Mixage, which is just all metal. So it's another compact controller that looks really nice but is heavy, or the Mixtrack Pro and the Mixtrack, which are just plastic and they feel it. So these kind of controllers are trying to look professional while still having that lightweightness about them. Okay, so let's look at what it's got. The jog wheels are very standard Vestax thing, which is to say very good. They have the scratch surface here, and then the acrylic edge is where you do your nudging. There's no way of turning scratch off on this, although there are sensitivity controls at the back. So if you're always accidentally flicking it when you're doing something else, you can set it so it needs a good push to work. And the centre silver bits which allow you to make them tighter or looser, so you can have them set how you want. However, the control over Tractor's MP3s with all controllers for Tractor except their own is good but not perfect. You know, I can spin that and stop it like that, and it'll continue to spin on the software for a few seconds. You know, it's not the end of the world, but if you want something that feels 100% like vinyl, this sync controlling Tractor isn't going to do it for you, nor anyone else's Tractor controllers, except the NI ones, except the S4 and the S2. They all have varying degrees of getting close to vinyl control, but only the S4 and the S2 have 100% one-on-one control. The irony being that the S4 and the S2's jog wheels don't feel anything like vinyl, whereas these, in theory, they've got the weight and they've got the feel, but just not the software control. Ironically, for a Tractor controller, in Virtual DJ, it's perfect. In the Virtual DJ, completely one-on-one, really tight control. Okay, so there's the jog wheels. When you touch them, they glow red, and when you take your hand off, they're blue underneath. You can't see it in the daylight, but trust me on that. Also talking about lighting, they've got a blue strip. Again, I'm not sure how well you'll see this, but they've got a blue strip down the edge here, which, if you're DJing in a low-lit, UV, cocktail bar somewhere, it's going to look brilliant. But if you're DJing in a kind of, you know, spitting sawdust, dark, small, sweaty room in a DJ booth with lots of blocky equipment, you might look a little bit out of place with this glowing kind of thing. It's a style thing though, you either like it or you won't like it. Okay, the mixer section down the middle has a couple of things which are nice and which you don't always get on DJ controllers. It has dedicated filters, which also have an on-off button, which is nice because you can switch the filter completely on or completely off without needing to do the movement of the knob. It also has a pan control, which also means balance or left-right for each channel, and the usual EQs, which don't quite cut all the way to kill. You can't push them for kill either, but they nearly go all the way, so there's not a big issue there. And the two toggles at the top allow you to turn from decks A and C and B and D to give you the full 4-deck control. And the joystick in the middle is quite nice. You can push it to click, which will change the view on Tractor from library to normal. But scrolling is up and down through your record library, and then moving left or right will load your selected track onto one of the decks. So that's really nice. I like the jog wheel on there. The effects and looping sections are duplicates of each other. They're exactly the same for the first time. The VCI-100, they had different controls left and right, which was a bit confusing. But these are exactly the same. You've got full control over the Tractor effects here. You've got all 4 effects units selectable by pressing Shift and 2 of the keys on either side, 2 of the buttons on either side here. The 4 buttons across underneath the knobs control, although they haven't got any markings on here to say what they do, they control the 4 buttons across the middle of Tractor underneath each loop, each FX area. So left, second to left, third from left, and right hand side on each side. So it's easy to see what you're going to be using these for. They correspond well and they're logical. The loop area is exactly what you'd expect, on, off, and then you can alter the size by halving or doubling it all the way from a 16th of a beat all the way up to the usual 8 bars. And there's a move function which quite non-standardly doesn't actually move the looped area, it just moves where the playhead is by the amount you've got set in the looped area. Very standard key, lock and sync. And that's about it for this area. The tempo control is pretty good. You can get about a 0.05% control. So it takes, in other words, you can kind of move it. It takes 20 little jogs to get 1 BPM up. The Novation Twitch has a little knob for pitch. However, that's got 1/100th of a BPM, 100 little clicks before you move up 1 BPM, so it's really fine. But this is pretty fine, it'll be alright for manual beat matching. But the Novation Twitch really is the first controller I've seen with that true 1/100th of a BPM, so slightly beaten by the Twitch there. It's quite ironic because the Twitch is a knob and not a fader. So there's your pitch fader. Down at the bottom here, the transport controls, you have a normal play pause and a normal cue. You also have a cue which will set a cue point but not pause, and it will jump back to it but not pause, so you can do some kind of creative cueing there without, there's basically variations on normal cue. It becomes very simple when you've seen what it does as you're using it, but I haven't seen that exact combination on any other controller, and that's pretty good. Okay, round the front, set down low, we have the main volume, we have the volume for the headphones, the headphone mix, so i.e. whether the headphones are monitoring the master output or your selected cue, and the crossfader curve. There is a crossfader curve. Crossfader is a little bit tight for scratching, as we discussed earlier. You probably won't be scratching on this anyway. And there is another level control. I'm not really sure what that does. I think it's something to do with the sound card. I really don't know. Just seemed like another headphone volume to me. But this level control and this button here, the button switches the various channels of the sound card to decide which one's going to be used for headphone monitoring and which one's going to be used for your master outputs. You could also do that in Tractor. Tractor comes with a mapping for this, by the way, so you just go to the setup wizard and all the controls will work. You still have to map your audio settings yourself though, which is just a case of selecting this controller's sound card in the drop downs. Okay, around the back, no microphone input, no booth output, no balanced output. 1 or 2 of those would have been nice on a controller at this price bracket, but it doesn't have them. It does have 2 master outputs which are identical not even a separate record output that isn't affected by the master volume control, which you sometimes get. They're both identical. So in internal mixing mode, you've just got two outputs there. However, when you set Tractor to external mixing mode, these can then go into two channels of a mixer. So you could have two channel mixing externally. Again, slightly limited functionality there for the price. I'd expect maybe one of these to at least be a record out or a booth out. You also have, as mentioned earlier, the touch sensitivity controls, these tiny little controls which just allow you to make the jogs more or less touch sensitive, and there's the ability to put in a DC adapter in order to give power to it if your USB hub can't handle it. By the way, it came with a little USB hub, which I thought was a nice addition. I've got it hanging around here somewhere, I'm not sure where it is. Just a little white thing which gives you 4 USB outputs. So if you're challenged for USB outputs on your laptop, this comes with something that will help you to plug it in without needing an extra one. So I thought that was quite nice. And there's also an emergency through with a volume control, so you can plug your iPad in there, or your iPod, or your any external sound source should you have a problem with your computer crashing. At least keep the music going if that happens. And even the Tractor Control S2 doesn't have that, which I thought was quite an omission on an expensive controller, not to have some kind of fallback. So that's something it's got over the S2. So there you go, we've looked at all the functions, who's it for, and how well is it going to do at the new price bracket. Well, how well it's going to do is difficult to call because there's so many good controllers coming out around that price level. Who's it for? That's a bit easier to call. If you are a pro DJ or a semi-pro DJ, you want to control 4 decks in Tractor, and you aren't bothered about microphone input, but you do want the backup just in case something goes wrong, which I would suggest all DJs want if they're DJing professionally. This controller could be just the one you're looking for. It feels professional, it's well built, it's portable, and it's got everything on it. It's mapped very well to Tractor as it is. When the new mapping comes out with a bit more creativity with the sample decks, should be very good indeed. If you are a DJ looking for a bit more flexibility, to plug external sources in and mix with them as well, or to have a microphone sometimes, it's not for you. It's a pure mixing controller. It's meant for just that one task of mixing music creatively. It beats hands down the old VCI-100 because it's got a built-in sound card, it's got proper effects assignability and stuff. There's no real reason to buy the VCI-100 unless you are a niche modder or a niche controllerist wanting all those extra buttons. There's plenty here you can already use for mapping your own controls to anyway. Where it falls down, I think, is just the price to value ratio a little bit. It's still a little bit expensive for what you get. And also it needs to watch out for all the other controllers in this price bracket just because it's a very interesting price bracket at the moment. But a solid little controller, not a sniff of the toy about it, apart from maybe the blue stripes down the side, which I have to say earlier, it's kind of a design thing. You're either going to like that or hate it. Should be on your shortlist if that's what you're looking for. The full review, as always, is at digitaldjtips.com, and you can find this one at /VCI-100-MK, then the number 2. So that's digitaldjtips.com/VCI-100-MK, and then the number 2. Go and look at that there, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.